Hello! Today I'd like to talk about the community in Fallout 76, specifically on why it's so friendly and welcoming. Most MMO games tend to have a small minority that takes joy from harassing and trolling other players. Some are worse than others. For example, Red Dead 2 and Grand Theft Auto seem to have some real problems with that. I haven't played them myself, but they do have that reputation. But in contrast, you get almost daily posts on the Fallout 76 Reddit from new players talking about how welcoming the community is. How the community is so wholesome and friendly. Low-level players asking how they can pay back high-level players for all their gifts. High-level players asking how they can give gifts without scaring new players. I'm not some massive MMO guy, but my own experience agrees that the community is uniformly friendly and welcoming. But why is this? This has been playing on my mind for a while, so let me give you some of my conclusions. Let me know if you agree or if you disagree. One of the biggest reasons is that the game has a pacifist setting. By default, you can't initiate player versus player fights if the setting is on. Even if it's off, PvP can only start if the other player retaliates. Any player shooting another player does a small portion of the damage they should do. Only once both players have done some damage to each other does a full PvP match start. This is a big contrast to most MMOs because PvP is simply expected. Based on my experience, most Fallout 76 players play with the pacifist setting enabled. But even with the pacifist setting, if the players wanted to do PvP, they could. They simply choose not to. I've never seen an actual PvP duel while playing the game. And my only time doing PvP was when I tried the Hunter x Hunter radio event, once. I think this has a lot to do with what Fallout is. Fallout has always been a single player game. Yes, you do fight, but it's you and possibly your companions taking on the wasteland. You fight raiders, you fight super mutants, you fight mutated monsters. Of course some players will go on killing sprees, and some of you maniacs may even join the Legion. But for the most part, Fallout is a game where the player does end up doing good. You save Bolt 101 by getting the water chip. You fix the water purifier by sacrificing yourself in DC. You restore the minimum and rescue the synths in the Commonwealth. You're the hero, right? The player base is simply more drawn to the single player experience of roaming the wasteland and taking out the monstrosities than they are taking on other players. This is not surprising if you remember that previous Fallouts have always been single player games. But anyone who's more interested in griefing or trolling will also be pushed away by the low player count. Fallout 76 tends to peak at around 10 to 12,000 players per day. As far as MMOs go, that's not very high actually. Red Dead Redemption gets around 30,000 per day. And GTA 5 gets around 60,000 per day. Some of those will be playing offline single player, but it seems fair to assume that most players will be playing the online versions. On top of that, players are spread out quite thinly. The most I remember seeing at any one time is about 8 full teams. That's about 32 players, and even accounting for players that don't join teams, you might be looking at a maximum of 50 per server. Outside of the player hubs like Nuka-Tour or Whitespring, I rarely run into anyone while exploring the world. If you're looking to grief someone, it's actually difficult to randomly find another player. And finding someone that doesn't have the pacifist enabled, even rarer. The chances that you'll actually be able to grief someone is very low. But if that's what you want, why wouldn't you just play GTA or Red Dead instead? Looking at what people say, it seems that they do. Players who are not into that type of gameplay actually seem to be pushed away from those games. In contrast, the way Fallout 76 is set up ends up pushing away griefers and encourages positive players. And that corresponds with my own experience. But to be completely fair, it seems that on consoles griefing is a bit more common than on PC. It doesn't seem to be massive, but it seems higher. So that explains why players aren't killing each other. But it doesn't explain why it's common to drop gifts for newer players. Why is that happening? If I was to answer that question with a single word, it would be abundance. Once you reach a certain level of power, you'll have an embarrassment of riches. Set up a few crops and water purifiers, and you'll have more food and water than you'll ever need. Play a bit and you'll have hundreds of spare stimpaks, radaways and radx's. With the last few updates, you'll also have ammo coming out of your arse. and a single eviction notice is enough to overload you with legendary gear. But on top of that, players have limits on everything. You can only store so many legendaries in your stash. Chems and ammo have weight, and all currencies have limits on how much you can have. So you have a combination of excess goods and limits that encourages players to reduce their inventories, even if it means dumping items. Take a look around after an eviction notice or a radiation rumble. You'll see people dumping 1 or 2 star legendaries because they're just not cost effective to carry. You can always just get more the next time you play. I often dump 3 star legendaries at White Spring Mall or Nuka Tour if I've scripted as much as I can today and it's heavy. I also bought plans for 5 and 10,000 caps that I wouldn't normally buy, but I did it because I was at the 40,000 cap limit and I had nothing to spend it on. I often dump hundreds of stim packs and dozens of fusion cores if I'm too heavy. Higher level players are swimming in overabundance. But on the other hand, low level players will often lack things like ammo and stim packs, especially if they don't participate in public events. In my honest Abe run, I was sorely lacking an adhesive to repair my armor, but my high level character has over 100 improved repair kits from doing boss battles. I haven't had to actually repair any gear at a workbench for ages. I don't know when, but at some point it became custom to gift newer players with your excess goods. It's a joke in the community that the higher level players are just dumping their excess weight on the newer player. There's even stories of newer players that don't know about this custom getting scared and running away, and the high level players giving chase and desperately trying to emote that they're giving them a gift. This custom is now common enough that the developers have added a donation box, where people can add items for newer players to take as they come out of Vault 76. And according to the public test server, more donation boxes will be added to other locations where players congregate. You might have noticed that I deliberately used the word custom. Anytime you get a number of people congregating together, a distinct culture will emerge. You'll have a common set of customs that existing members engage in and new members learn. It could be a new sign language.
The children showed little interest in learning a language forced upon them. Instead, they began communicating with each other in their own way.
It could be a way of speaking.
Earn, and earn. Aaron, earn, and iron, earn. Damn, what the fuck? We really talk like that?
It could be the clothing you wear. In the case of Fallout 76, it's clear that the community has a culture of welcoming and helping new players, and those players then passing on the favor onto newer players when they become the high level players. From what I've read, the early versions of the game did not have the abundance that we're so familiar with now. You had to eat and drink, otherwise you would die. Raiding player camps and workshops for resources seems to have been much more common. We still have vestiges of that. For example, workshops are still PvP areas, even if it doesn't look like anybody actually does PvP. This was not deliberate. Bethesda did not intend for Fallout 76 to have as friendly a community as it has at the moment. That culture emerged from the combination of the natural preferences of the player base, the abundance that you got from relaxing some of the game systems, and the limits on player stash and currencies that stop even the most determined hoarders. Giving gifts may have begun as a way to let someone else get some use from items you were going to dump anyway, but the culture has taken root, to the stage where it's now become a point of pride for people to help newer players. Speaking for myself, one of the most satisfying happenings in the game is when a low level player goes past my camp and buys a bunch of plans that I'm selling for 1 cap each. It ticks me off when a level 1000 does the same, but that happens a lot less often. Or when you can help other players by gifting them a spare legendary that they can use more effectively than I can. I know that at least some other people also feel the same way. The result is a community that is welcoming enough for new players to ask why the community is so wholesome and helpful. And that's why Fallout 76 has one of the best MMO communities around. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments. Feel free to leave a like, subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified when new videos come out. See you soon.